We'll now be commencing Dua al-Iftitah. Please note we may need to lower the lights during the Dua so that all can follow on the slides, inshallah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد يا علي يا عظيم يا غفور يا رحيم أنت الرب العظيم الذي ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير وهذا شهر عظمته وكرمته وشرفته وفضلته على الشهور وهو الشهر الذي فرضت صيامه عليه وهو شهر رمضان الذي أنزلت فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان وجعلت فيه ليلة القدر وجعلتها خيرا من 1000 شهر فيا ذا المن ولا يمن عليك من علي بفكاك رقبتي من النار في من تمن عليه وأدخلني الجنة برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم رب شهر رمضان الذي أنزلت فيه القرآن وافترضت على عبادك فيه الصيام صل على محمد وآل محمد وارزقني حج بيتك الحرام في عامي هذا وفي كل عام واغفر لي تلك الذنوب العظام فإنه لا يغفرها غيرك يا رحمن يا علام. اللهم صل على محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم إني أفتتح الثناء بحمدك وأنت مسدد للصواب بمنك وأيقنت أنك أنت أرحم الراحمين في موضع العفو والرحمة وأشد المعاقبين في موضع النكال والنقمة وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمة. اللهم أذنت لي في دعائك ومسألتك فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي واجب يا رحيم دعوتي وأقل يا غفور عثرتي فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجتها وهموم قد كشفتها وعثرة قد أقلتها ورحمة قد نشرتها وحلقة بلاء قد فككتها. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا ولم يكن له شريك في الملك ولم يكن له ولي من الذل وكبره تكبيرا. الله أكبر. الحمد لله بجميع محامده كلها على جميع نعمه كلها. الحمد لله الذي لا مضاد له في ملكه ولا منازع له في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله الفاشي في الخلق أمره وحمده الظاهر بالكرم مجده الباسط بالجود يداه الذي لا تنقص خزائنه ولا تزيده كثرة العطاء إلا جودا وكرما إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير مع حاجة بي إليه عظيمة
وغناك عنه قديم، وهو عندي كثير، وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إن عفوك عن ذنبي، وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي، وصفحك عن ظلمي، وسترك على قبيح عملي، وحلمك عن كثير جرمي، عندما كان من خطئي وعمدي يطمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك، الذي رزقتني من رحمتك، وأريتني من قدرتك، وعرفتني من إجابتك، فصرت أدعوك آمنا وأسألك مستأنسا، لا خائفا ولا وجلا، مدلا عليك فيما قصدت فيه إليك، فإن أبطأ عني عتبت بجهلي عليك، ولعل الذي أبطأ عني هو خير لي لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور. فلم أر مولا كريما أصبر على عبد لئيم منك علي. يا ربي إنك تدعوني فأولي عنك، وتتحبب إلي وأتبغض إليك، وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك، كأن اليد تطول عليك، فلم يمنعك ذلك من الرحمة لي والإحسان إلي والتفضل علي بجودك وكرمك، فارحم عبدك الجاهل وجد عليه بفضل إحسانك، إنك جواد كريم. الحمد لله مالك الملك، مجري الفلك، مسخر الرياح، فالق الإصباح، ديان الدين، رب العالمين. الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه، والحمد لله على عفوه بعد قدرته، والحمد لله على طول أناته في غضبه، وهو قادر على ما يريد. الحمد لله خالق الخلق، باسط الرزق، فالق الإصباح، ذي الجلال والإكرام والفضل والإنعام، الذي بعد فلا يرى قرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى. الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يعادله، ولا شبيه يشاكله، ولا ظهير يعاضده، قهر بعزته الأعزاء، وتواضع لعظمته العظماء، فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء. الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أناديه، ويستر علي كل عورة وأنا أعصيه، ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازيه، فكم من موهبة هنيئة قد أعطاني، وعظيمة مخوفة قد كفاني، وبهجة مونقة قد أراني، فأثني عليه حامدا وأذكره مسبحا. الحمد لله الذي لا يهتك حجابه، ولا يغلق بابه، ولا يرد سائله، ولا يخيب آمله. الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين، وينجي الصالحين، ويرفع المستضعفين، ويضع المستكبرين، ويهلك ملوكا، ويستخلف آخرين. والحمد لله قاسم الجبارين، مبير الظالمين، مدرك الهاربين، نكال الظالمين، صريخ المستصرخين، موضع حاجات الطالبين معتمد المؤمنين. الحمد لله الذي من خشيته ترعد السماء وسكانها، وترجف الأرض وعمارها، وتموج البحار ومن يسبح في غمراتها. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق، ويرزق ولا يرزق، ويطعم ولا يطعم، ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى، وهو حي لا يموت، بيده الخير، وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك، أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأزكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأسنى، وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت وسلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفوتك وأهل الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم وصل على علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين، عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم. وصل على الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين، وصل على سبطي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة، وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي، حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة. اللهم وصل على ولي أمرك القائم المؤمل والعدل المنتظر وحفه بملائكتك المقربين، وأيده بالروح القدس يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعله الداعية إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك، استخلفه في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله، مكن له دينه الذي ارتضيته له، أبدله من بعد خوفه أمنا، يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وأعزز به، وانصره وانتصر به، وانصره نصرا عزيزا، وافتح له فتحا يسيرا، واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وسنة نبيك حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله، وتذل بها النفاق وأهله، وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملناه، وما قصرنا عنه فبلغنا. اللهم المم به شعثنا، واشعب به صدعنا، وارتق به فتقنا، وكثر به قلتنا، واعزز به ذلتنا، واغن به عائلنا، واقض به عن مغرمنا، واجبر به فقرنا، وسد به خلتنا، ويسر به عسرنا، وبيض به وجوهنا، وفك به أسرنا، وأنجح به طلبتنا، وأنجز به مواعيدنا، واستجب به دعوتنا، وأعطنا به سؤلنا، وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا، وأعطنا به فوق رغبتنا يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المعطين. اشف به صدورنا، وأذهب به غيظ قلوبنا، واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك، إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا إله الحق. آمين. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله، وغيبة ولينا، وكثرة عدونا، وقلة عددنا، وشدة الفتن بنا، وتظاهر الزمان علينا. فصل على محمد وآله، وأعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجله، وبضر تكشفه، ونصر تعزه، وسلطان حق تظهره، ورحمة منك تجللناها، وعافية منك تلبسناها، برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم برحمتك في الصالحين فادخلنا، وفي عليين فارفعنا، وبكأس من معين من عين سلسبيل فاسقنا، ومن الحور العين برحمتك فزوجنا، ومن الولدان المخلدين كأنهم لؤلؤ مكنون فأخدمنا، ومن ثمار الجنة ولحوم الطير فأطعمنا، ومن ثياب السندس والحرير والاستبرق فألبسنا، وليلة القدر حج بيتك الحرام وقتلا في سبيلك فوفق لنا، وصالح الدعاء والمسألة فاستجب لنا، وإذا جمعت الأولين والآخرين يوم القيامة فارحمنا، وبراءة من النار فاكتب لنا، وفي جهنم فلا تغلنا، وفي عذابك وهوانك فلا تبتلنا، ومن الزقوم والضريع فلا تطعمنا، ومع الشياطين فلا تجعلنا، وفي النار على وجوهنا فلا تكببنا، ومن ثياب النار وسرابيل القطران فلا تلبسنا، ومن كل سوء يا لا إله إلا أنت، بحق لا إله إلا أنت فنجنا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أسألك أن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر من الأمر المحتوم في الأمر الحكيم، من القضاء الذي لا يرد ولا يبدل، أن تكتبني من حجاج بيتك الحرام المبرور حجهم، المشكور سعيهم، المغفور ذنوبهم، المكفر عن سيئاتهم. وأن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر أن تطيل عمري في خير وعافية، وتوسع في رزقي، وتجعلني ممن تنتصر به لدينك ولا تستبدل بي غيري. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بجلال وجهك الكريم أن ينقضي عني شهر رمضان أو يطلع الفجر من ليلتي هذه ولك قبلي تبعا، أو ذنب تعذبني عليه. اللهم صل على محمد وآله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إنك قلت في كتابك المنزل: شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان، فعظمت حرمة شهر رمضان بما أنزلت فيه من القرآن، وخصصته بليلة القدر وجعلتها خيرا من 1000 شهر. اللهم وهذه أيام شهر رمضان قد انقضت ولياليه قد تصرمت، وقد صرت يا إلهي منه إلى ما أنت أعلم به مني وأحصى لعدده من الخلق أجمعين، فأسألك بما سألك به ملائكتك المقربون وأنبياؤك المرسلون وعبادك الصالحون أن تصلي على محمد وآل محمد، وأن تفك رقبتي من النار وتدخلني الجنة برحمتك، وأن تتفضل علي بعفوك وكرمك وتتقبل تقربي وتستجيب دعائي، وتمن علي بالأمن يوم الخوف من كل هول أعددته ليوم القيامة. إلهي وأعوذ بوجهك الكريم وبجلالك العظيم أن ينقضي أيام شهر رمضان ولياليه ولك قبلي تبعة أو ذنب تؤاخذني به أو خطيئة تريد أن تقتصها مني لم تغفرها لي. سيدي سيدي سيدي، أسألك يا لا إله إلا أنت، إذ لا إله إلا أنت، إن كنت رضيت عني في هذا الشهر فازدد عني رضا، وإن لم تكن رضيت عني فمن الآن فارض عني يا أرحم الراحمين. يا الله يا أحد يا صمد، يا من لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا ملين الحديد لداود عليه السلام، يا كاشف الضر والكرب العظام عن أيوب عليه السلام، أي مفرج هم يعقوب عليه السلام، أي منفس غم يوسف عليه السلام، صل على محمد وآل محمد كما أنت أهله أن تصلي عليهم أجمعين، وافعل بي ما أنت أهله ولا تفعل بي ما أنا أهله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم أدخل على أهل القبور السرور. اللهم أغن كل فقير. اللهم أشبع كل جائع. اللهم اكس كل عريان. اللهم اقض دين كل مدين. اللهم فرج عن كل مكروب. اللهم رد كل غريب. اللهم فك كل أسير. اللهم أصلح كل فاسد من أمور المسلمين. اللهم اشف كل مريض. اللهم سد فقرنا بغناك. اللهم غير سوء حالنا بحسن حالك. اللهم اقض عنا الدين وأغننا من الفقر، إنك على كل شيء قدير.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Sheikh Mohamedali and others, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. This is one of my favourite sayings, especially from the cartoon, so I thought I'd put it up there before we start, so we can all be ever present. I'll be too far away. Yeah.
Can you try that?
Okay. So, a couple of months ago, I offered to do a talk on a certain topic, and it's something that we do probably about 120 or 200 times during my talk. We do 720 times an hour, 17,000 times during the day, and 6,300,000 times during the year. Does anybody have an idea what we're going to do? What we do? Go on.
Breathe.
Breathe, exactly that. Breathing. So my talk today is about the lost art of breathing. So with breathing, it's not just about, so when we breathe, we take in billions of molecules of air every time we take a breath. It goes into our body via our lungs, into the bloodstream, and carried along via these hemoglobin or red blood cell corpuscles into our bodies, where it finally meets the actual engine in which the oxygen is used up to create energy. But breathing isn't just about creating energy. Yeah, it covers so much more. It does so much more to our bodies, and it affects every single organ that we have within us. It affects our cardiovascular system, where it regulates our heart rhythm, our heart rate, our blood pressure. It can affect our brain in terms of memories. It causes various chemical releases which can affect our mood, and it can affect our mental health too. It affects our digestion, our nervous system, and our immune system, such that it helps with regard to fighting infections and also warding off autoimmune diseases. or dealing with autoimmune diseases. So the other thing with breathing, it's been shown through various stories, various articles and other research that it has a role to play in aging. And there was a gentleman back in the 1900s who was in his 60s, and he was a colonel within the British military and had spent time out in India. And when he returned to England, he spent most of his days being more or less redundant in his time, and he aged, he became immobile, he became under the influence of various diseases and was getting old. And he was looking for this wonderful cure, and he ended up going back to India to look for this cure. When he returned back 4 years later, he was a bald man when he left. He came back with a full head of hair. He was upright, standing upright and walking on unaided, and was looking 20 years younger. When he was asked about how he had managed this, he put it down to posture, stretching, and breathing. He essentially had managed to reverse the aging process and managed to get himself fitter and more agile and able to fight off disease. This gentleman here on the screen is a guy called Carl Stauff. Now, back in the 1960s, again, he was an ex-military man. He was a doctor, and he was sort of known as the godfather of breathing. He was in a hospital where he had many end-stage emphysematous patients, those people suffering from end-stage emphysema. These guys were bedbound, they were on supplemental oxygen, and he had made an observation that when they breathed, they didn't breathe properly. They had lost the ability to breathe. So through various exercises and various demonstrations, he was actually managed to get them to use their diaphragm, and he's the king, sort of the godfather of diaphragmatic breathing, and managed to increase their lung capacity by twice the size as what it was before. So much so that these guys who were bedbound were now able to walk upstairs. They were able to get off their supplemental oxygen and begin living a reasonable life again. So what that basically taught us, or what it tells us, is that through breathing we can retrain ourselves, we can relearn how to breathe properly, and that lost art. And this person on the left, believe it or not, he's 50 years old, and he's a guy called Herbert Nish. And as you can, I don't know if you can read the bottom, well, it's a bit blurred, the bottom caption says that he holds 33 world records for free diving. This is a gentleman who holds a record for free diving down to 250 meters. And during that world record attempt, or success, he was able to hold his breath for over 9.5 minutes. When he was asked how he was able to achieve that, he said it was through training, breathing, and mindset. The ladies next to him are Japanese women from Amma, so they're called the Amma divers. And these ladies have, and their ancestors for over 3,000 years, have been diving, searching for pearls, oysters in the deep sea. And again, when you ask them how they manage this, it's all through mindset and breathing techniques, which can all be learned, and it doesn't matter what the age. The Amma Japanese divers are now a sort of dying breed, and there's only a few of them left, and they age between 50 and 80 years old, and still to this day they still dive, even at those ages, down to find those oysters and pearls. So in history, there's been many occasions where people have described breathing techniques or meditation techniques or even prayer in which they're able to control and regulate their breathing. So much so, well, one example of them are the Buddhist monks. And the Buddhist monks have been able to demonstrate that through prayer, meditation, and breathing regulation, they're able to regulate their temperature, they're able to control their immune system such they can fight off infection, they're able to treat diseases within themselves, and they're able to actually slow the rate at which they age as well, physiologically. I mentioned temperature regulation. Here's a Buddhist monk who's able to actually meditate and breathe in the snow. So, and they're able to regulate their temperatures such that they can have an almost 16-degree difference compared to us normal people with regard to regulating our temperature. I don't know if anybody's been watching the TV recently, but there's a program on at the moment called Freeze the Fear, and this is the main character, a guy called Wim Hof. This is a gentleman when during his 30s, his wife had passed away and hit him quite hard, and he had turned to the Buddhist monks for strategies on dealing with this and coping with this. And what he had learned was their secrets of being able to harness these techniques that they had in order to be able to combat the freeze and be able to do all sorts of amazing things. This is a gentleman that was able to run a half marathon in the Arctic Circle with nothing but a pair of shorts on, no shoes, bare feet. He was able to run a full marathon in the Namibian desert without a drop of water. And he was able to do this and control this via various breathing techniques. And when you ask him how he's managed to do this, he says it's through three things: breathing, freezing, and mindset. His philosophy has gone worldwide and is fully available on the internet, and you can read about it. You can see various YouTube clips about it as well. One of his followers is a guy called Chuck McGee, and he's a 33-year-old who was diagnosed with diabetes. Along with diabetes, he was found to be hypertensive, high blood pressure. He had anxiety, depression. He had chronic pain with regard to his back pain, and he suffered with other autoimmune diseases such as psoriasis. He then became a follower of Wim Hof, followed his techniques, followed his methods, and he was able to come off with his blood pressure medication. He was able to come off with his benzodiazepines that he was on, and he was able to reduce his insulin by over 80%. Oh, and this is a picture of Chuck McGee here. So, like I said, throughout history, there have been demonstrations, there's been literature about how people have been able to use breathing and harness their bodies in order to fight disease. And during the 80s, they took Wim Hof and various other Buddhist monks and carried out various experiments on them, such as they looked at how they managed to regulate their body temperatures. They put them in extreme cold, extreme heat, and they were able to control that just by through their breathing techniques itself. They were able to, so one experiment they did, which I found quite amazing, was they injected these volunteers and Wim Hof with E. coli, and in us normal people, that would have caused a fever, diarrhea, vomiting. You know, we'd be very, very unwell. But in these people, they were able to regulate their immune system, regulate their energy, and were able to fight off this infection within mere minutes. It basically didn't even affect them. You know, and when the researchers looked at this, they found it wasn't just due to breathing techniques. It was about an internal energy that these guys possessed, that they were able to harness and use to extent that they were able to control it, whereas us normal people have not developed that technique. So one of the descriptions of this energy that we have between us, between the molecules that we can harness, is from India, called prana. Prana stands for life force, and pranayama means life force expands, so through breathing. And people who follow pranayama are able to, through various breathing techniques, through acupuncture, postures, and even spicy food, are able to control this energy such that they can calm their mind, relieve stress, and heal their bodies. In China, they call the same energy that flows through everybody qi, and over there is our Tai Chi instructor who comes and teaches us every Thursday, who's able to harness this qi through a method called qigong, and qigong stands for breath working, and they're able to, through this breathing, able to harness this energy and focus it and be able to get the benefits of this energy through healing, through mindset, and able to heal themselves within, as well as control their anxieties and depression and various medical illnesses that they have. But one word of warning is that the breathing techniques aren't as straightforward to do, as in you can just go into the internet and read about it and do it. By all means, you could do it, but my advice would be, if you are going to go down this route and look at these breathing techniques, you do need an instructor. You do need to be in a safe environment, because these can have quite extreme events that can that can cause you to faint, lose consciousness, to hallucinate if not done correctly. So my advice is, if you are going to learn some breathing techniques, stick to these simple, straightforward ones. And stuff like the method like Tumo, which Wim Hof uses, you need to have an instructor, you need to be guided in how to do this. But as a doctor, this energy, this healing process that comes from within, I see it all the time. As a doctor, we help people, we cut things out, we give them medication, but the true healer is from within. I see people heal by themselves, the energy that comes through them. We just support them in allowing the body to actually heal itself. And that's why I'm just going to end with this hadith by Imam Ali that I think encompasses quite a lot of what I've talked about. It's about mindset, it's about well-being, and the first step in mindset and well-being is, I believe, through breathing. Thank you.
Inshallah, we will now have a short, before the Majlis, we'll have a short video announcement on behalf of the Al-Ayn Social Care Foundation. Can we begin with Salawat ala Mohamed wa ali Mohammed?
For this orphan child and others like him to be treated, Al-Ayn established a dedicated medical centre in 2010. It started off as a simple health centre, which included a few clinics and received tens of orphan children on a daily basis. Children are examined carefully, given follow-up appointments, and provided with the necessary treatment needed. Since the opening of the Luminous Stars Centre, which was built with the help of generous donations, a large part of the centre was dedicated to healthcare. The centre became like a mini hospital, providing numerous services through different clinics. The clinics provide the following services: dental care, general medical care, optometry, ear, nose and throat care. There are other specialised clinics and a laboratory running throughout the week. In addition, there is a pharmacy that offers the best medicine sourced internationally. Needless to say, all of this is offered to orphan children and those in need, free of charge. All these departments are equipped with the latest technology and run by qualified specialists who volunteer their time and expertise to provide care and attention to orphan children and their families. The medical centre also caters for regular patients, whose examination fees are used for the benefit of orphan children, supported by Al-Ayn. The centre has entered into a number of cooperation agreements with private and public hospitals. It has also cooperated with hospitals and doctors outside of Iraq to treat orphan children in situations where the centre has been unequipped to do so. In the distribution hall, where families receive their monthly financial aid, there is a dedicated section to reviewing medical care needs. After diagnosing the case, it is referred to the medical centre's relevant clinic, where treatment procedures begin. If the medical centre is unable to treat the case, it will be referred to cooperating hospitals inside Iraq. If the case cannot be treated in the country, it is treated outside Iraq. Al-Ayn coordinates travel procedures and takes care of the orphan child's travel expenses, including food and drink, housing and treatment until they return to the homeland. Al-Ayn keeps in contact with the child and follows up on the child's health until full recovery, thanks to the Almighty, with the blessing of God. Al-Ayn has treated hundreds of medical cases in record time. Your support will help draw a smile on the faces of orphan children.
inshallah. Inshallah, we'll now have the Majlis to be delivered by, once again, by Sheikh Mohamedali Ismail. We're most grateful, Sheikh, for you joining us once again this evening. Can I please request all the Mu'mineen to welcome Sheikh with the loudest of the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وله الحمد في الآخرة وهو الحكيم الخبير والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث إلى كافة الورى شاهدا ومبشرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته أئمة الهدى ومصابيح الدجى الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اقتربت الساعة وانشق قمر صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد Sheikh Abbas, my elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Did the Prophet split the moon in two? This is the question that we'll examine this evening, and we'll approach this whole topic in three stages. First of all, we'll look at what the Quran and tradition say about this whole incident. Then we'll go on to mention some of the arguments put forward by those who say the Prophet did not split the moon in two and it was not any such miracle. Then we'll look at the responses to these arguments. After that, we will end by just looking at what spiritual lessons we can gain from this whole incident, inshallah. Let's begin with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So with regard to the first stage, what does the Quran and the tradition say about this event? Well, it is widely reported in both Sunni and Shi'i sources from the tradition perspective, but from the Quranic perspective, we have the verses mentioned in Surah Al-Qamar, which is chapter number 54 of the Quran. And the very first one is the one that I recited a few moments ago, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر. The hour has drawn near and the moon is split in two. What does this mean? First of all, the first part, the hour has drawn near. The hour here refers to the day of resurrection. Why has the hour drawn near? Well, it is because when the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent to mankind, this is actually a sign in the traditions as to the nearness of the day of resurrection. So for example, we have that very famous tradition where he says, "Bu'ithtu ana was-sa'atu kahatain," holding up his fingers like that. He says that I have been sent, and in relation to the hour, again the day of resurrection, it is like these two, meaning that my coming to you, to mankind, being sent to guide mankind, and the day of resurrection are very, very close. It's like these two fingers together. So the coming of the Holy Prophet in relation to what has transpired in the whole lifespan of the earth is regarded, relatively speaking, as being near to the day of resurrection. So all the previous history of the earth, then you have this point where the Prophet comes to mankind. In relation to this point, to the day of resurrection, it is relatively near, right? Relatively speaking. So this is the first part as to what is meant by this verse. What about the second part? One shaqqal qamar, that the moon is split in two. What does this mean and how can we explain it? Well, like I said, there are so many traditions about this event, narrated by both Sunni and Shi'i sources. But essentially, when we put them all together, they are reported in various different ways, but we put them all together, we glean the following sort of like a story and incident that took place with regards to the splitting of the moon. The policies of Mecca, so first of all, it happened in Mecca before Hijrah, just to give some context to the incident. The policies of Mecca demanded from the Prophet that he split the moon in order to prove that he is the rightful Prophet. So Rasulullah, he prays to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this happen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala splits the moon in two. Then the Prophet calls to the people that, oh so and so, bear witness. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts the moon back together. Now, in one report, we are told that one of the disbelievers actually said that, well, he has bewitched us, but he won't be able to bewitch the people of the whole world. So let's do one thing. Let's wait until some travelers come from a faraway land to Mecca. When they arrive here, we'll ask them that, did you see this event take place? And then we'll be able to ascertain, were we only bewitched here in this locality, or did it actually take place in other places as well? Did other people see it? This is how we'll be able to ascertain the truth. This is what they do. A little later, some travelers begin to come. Every time a traveler enters Mecca, they ask that traveler that, did you see the moon being split like this and then being put back together? And they confirmed that they did. So in fact, this is really the mainstream opinion. Both Sunni and Shi'i scholars agree on this. Generally speaking, the vast majority of commentators and scholars of the Quran say that this verse actually points to the moon splitting in two, and it was a miracle that happened. Now, let's have a look at some of the arguments in stage 2 of this whole discussion, put forward by those who reject this having taken place. What arguments do they present? Well, first of all, we have to bear in mind that these rejectors of this account are very few and far between. Very, very few of them actually say a miracle did not take place. But let's have a look at the arguments, and then we'll see the counter arguments as well. One of the few commentators who says it wasn't a miracle is that person who we introduced yesterday, Mohamedabbas. You recall yesterday that he was this Jewish convert who embraced Islam, and he translated the whole of the Quran. It was published in 1980. Okay, so he's Austrian by origin, changes his name and becomes a Muslim. Now, in this translation of the Quran, I mentioned yesterday that he has thousands and thousands of footnotes. When we look at his translation and then his footnotes, he tells us the following. He says that, and you recall that he had this very particular approach to interpreting, in particular, those supernatural things that are mentioned in the Quran. He took a very rationalist approach to explaining those supernatural phenomena that are mentioned in the Quran. And therefore, he had a very uncomfortable position with regard to miracles. We saw that yesterday with the miracles of Nabi Isa, where he tries to explain them in a metaphorical way and using language that really explains it either in an allegorical way, metaphorical way, or scientific way. Always when it comes to miracles, this is his approach because of his rationalistic tendency. So when it comes to this incident, he says that it's possible that what had actually happened, what the people had actually seen, was a partial lunar eclipse. Right? That it is possible they saw a partial lunar eclipse, and this in turn produced in their minds an optical illusion. Right? This is his explanation of this incident of the splitting of the moon. Partial lunar eclipse causes them to have an optical illusion. What are his proofs and evidence for this opinion? He mentions, and he says that, well, look at the verse. وَانْشَقَّ الْقَمَرِ, the word Anshaqqa is actually past tense in Arabic. It's past tense. So it literally means the moon was split. He says that in the Quran, we have many instances where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the past tense verb to refer to something in the future. Why does Allah do this? This is a particular style of the Quran, and it's there in the Arabic language that when an event is definitely going to happen, it's certain to happen, the past tense is used. This is a little bit strange for us when we look at things in English, but this is the Arabic language, and certainly the Quran has this. So, for example, in Surah Al-A'raf, verse number 50, we are told that وَنَادَى أَصْحَابُ النَّارِ أَصْحَابَ الْجَنَّةِ, that the people of the hellfire, they actually call out to the people of paradise. They call out. Now, or I should translate it as they will call out. Notice future tense, right? When we look at it in English, they will call out, because that's obviously going to happen in the future, isn't it? But in Arabic, nada is used. It's past tense. It means literally called out to them. But it's an example to show that when something definite is going to happen, certainly will happen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the past tense. Okay, so this, Muhammad Asad uses this as his proof that the past tense is used in this verse. The anshaka is a past tense verb, and it refers to the future. So what future? He says it refers to what will happen as a sign for the coming of the day of resurrection. We know that when the day of resurrection will come in, the whole created order as we know it will be destroyed. Everything will come to an end, and a new order will be created. So he's saying that this will happen in the future. Just like everything else will be destroyed, so too will the moon be destroyed. It will split asunder. And therefore, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَانْشَقَّ الْقَمَرِ, he's talking about a future event, a sign that the akhirah is about to come into existence. So this is his proof. And he takes this and he says that there are authorities that support this, etc. Now, when we look at this, this is the first argument put forward by those who reject that it was a miracle. A second argument is that, look, if this truly happened, then why didn't many people see it? Why didn't many people report it? That's the second argument. So the first argument is based on the actual wording of the verse. Past tense means future, and it's something that refers to the coming of the day of resurrection. Second argument is that why didn't many people see it and report it? Third argument is that why didn't it cause cataclysmic natural disasters on the earth? The earth obviously has a very close relationship with the moon. And if the moon is split into two, definitely that should have a massive, cataclysmic, catastrophic impact on the earth. How come nothing like that has been reported? Good arguments or not? Let's have a look. Are there responses to these arguments? Was it really a miracle, or is it referring to something that was an optical illusion, or is referring to the day of resurrection? Let's examine the responses, beginning with the Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The response to the first objection, that look at the wording of the Quran, is that yes, look at the wording of the Quran. The apparent meaning of the verse is that the moon was split. We cannot just bypass the apparent meaning and say that yes, past tense refers to a definite thing that would happen in the future, etc. Well, past tense primarily means past tense. You only make it sound like it refers to something in the future if there are very specific reasons. For example, if you were to say that it relates to the past tense, it wouldn't make much sense. It wouldn't really fit the context. There wouldn't be a good reason to translate it as past tense. Then you say that, well, here past tense means future tense. Otherwise, you don't go down that route in the first place. You don't say past tense means future tense if a plausible explanation can be given for it to be translated as past tense. And there is a plausible explanation here because of the traditions that we have and the apparent meaning of the verse. That one shaqqal qamar means the moon was split in two. So this is the first thing. Secondly, one of the best proofs is the actual passage of the Quran itself. Whenever you come across verses, look what comes before, look what comes after it, the siyaq as it's known, the literal context of the verse. Well, when we look at that, we have perhaps the best proof that it was a miracle. And that is because the very next verse explains certain things to us. What does the next verse say? Verse number 2 of Surah Al-Qamar says, وَإِنْ رَأَوْا آيَةً يُعْرِضُوا وَيَقُولُ سِحْرٌ مُسْتَمِرٌ. What that means is that when they see a sign, ayah, sign, but ayah in the Quran, when we talk about miracles, the word mu'jiza is not used, right? Miracles in the Quran is referred to as ayah. So it means when they see an ayah, when they see a miracle, they turn away and they say it's an incessant, it's a continual magic. It's a continual magic. This is their claim. They see it, but they say it's all magic. And the Prophet, they're saying that he does this continuously, magic after magic after magic. So here is a very good counter argument that why would they say this is a magic? Surely they have seen something extraordinary, isn't it? If you think you are being bewitched or a magic trick has been played on you, it's because you have seen something has happened which is extraordinary, it's not normal. So the argument is, why would the policies accuse the Prophet of doing magic if it didn't take place, if it was referring to something in the future, a sign of the day of resurrection? It means they saw something extraordinary, i.e. the moon splitting. That's why they accused the Prophet of doing another magic. So that's one argument. Then we said that those who reject this miracle say that why wasn't it widely reported and widely seen? Well, what's the answer to this? The answer to this is that it was widely seen and reported. You will recall in that incident that I recounted earlier, that not only had the policies at the time seen it, but they said that let's wait for travelers to come, isn't it, from far off lands. And if we'll ask them, did you see that as well? Or is it just us who have been bewitched? If they said, yes, we saw it, then we will know that it actually did happen. So we have the policies at the time, that crowd that was there, they certainly saw it. Then we have the travelers coming in. When they were asked, did you see the moon being split when you were away, far away from Mecca? They said, yes, we saw it being split. Also, when they say that, why isn't it widely reported? You know what? This incident is regarded as being tawatur. Tawatur is the highest level of a tradition. It means wide-scale transmission. Mutawatir traditions are those that have been reported by so many reporters in all these stages of its transmission, generation after generation, that we attain certainty as to its authenticity. We have no doubt about it. This incident is regarded as being tawatur, transmitted in a wide scale, to the extent that we have certainty, the highest level of status given to any report. So who says it's not widely reported? Who says it wasn't seen by many people? On top of that, we can say that, all right, let's say you don't accept all of that, and you want even more people to have seen it, right? You want even more people to have reported. What possible reasons could there be? If we take your argument and we go down this route, what possible other reasons could there have been that it wasn't seen more widely and reported more prominently? Look at the reasons that can be given for this. First of all, when it's night in one place, it's daytime in the other, right? Half the world is in darkness, the other half is in daytime. So immediately half the world couldn't have seen it anyway. Right? That's half the world sorted, just like that. Secondly, let's have a look at the half that there was nighttime. It could have been, well, we know that it was late. So people would have been at home or asleep, so they might not have seen it. It could have been cloudy at that time. It could have been such that the miracle did not make any sound, or it did not diminish the level of light that was there. So something's happening in the sky, it's not making any sound, let's say, and if the light levels are not diminishing, let's say, then you wouldn't notice it. You would only notice it if you happen to be looking at the sky at that time. So is it any wonder that not everyone saw it? Also, let's say that this event was not reported so much, because in those days, these type of events were not reported like they are today. You know, they say that even if you get, you know, a moderately famous person sneezing, the whole world knows, right? The way social media is these days, everything is reported. The person is not even that famous, moderately famous person sneezes, everybody knows about it. In those days, it wasn't like that. Not everything was reported. And another argument is that how long did this event take place for? Did it last and last and last? That someone's bound to have looked up at the sky and then seen it? No. It was a relatively short incident. It happened and that was it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put the moon back together. So can you see why, even if we don't accept the tawatur argument and the travelers and the policies and widely reported and all of that, it's not such a big thing to say that, well, it was not that type of event, the circumstances was not that type of thing that millions and millions of people could have seen it. So now the third argument was that if it happened, then why don't we know of those cataclysmic natural disasters that would have bound to have happened on the earth, isn't it? When the moon splits, then surely because of the close relationship between the moon and the earth, we would have had many, many natural disasters, right? Well, the answer is very, very simple. Who made the miracle happen in the first place? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He made it happen simply by willing it. The Prophet prayed to him, Allah made it happen, and very easily he made the two halves come together again. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can destroy every single thing just by willing it. We're not even talking fractions of seconds here. We're just talking about simply willing it. Kun fayakun, everything is destroyed. Kun fayakun, everything is created. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can split the moon so easily and do all of these amazing things so easily, just by simply willing it, then can he not also miraculously prevent any cataclysmic natural disaster from happening? Of course he can. It's not even, a thing for him that it would be difficult and for us to debate, why wasn't there a tidal wave here and this volcano there and this landslide here and etc., etc. In the same way that he proved for his prophet, his prophethood to those who were demanding some proof, he can also put it back together without disturbing the natural order, without harming anyone, without killing anyone. And this is a very good response to that third objection. Sallallahu Muhammad wa Muhammad. So then finally, let's have a look at what points of spiritual development we can get from this incident. Because it's fine looking at the Quran, understanding it, and learning a bit more about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's words. Even it reflects on our theology, because obviously miracles are a big part of our theology. And we get to learn about what others are saying about our holy book. But it's also very good, especially in this holy month, to see what spiritual lessons can we derive for our personal and spiritual development. Well, for this, we can look at the very next verse. Now we're on verse number 3 of Surah Al-Qamar. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us why those polytheists not accept and said that it's all just magic. Why they rejected this amazing sign. وَكَذَّبُوا وَاتَّبَعُوا أَهْوَاءَهُمْ وَكُلُّ أَمْرٍ مُسْتَقِرٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that they rejected it. They denied it. Why? Because they followed their ahwa, their hawa. They followed their desires, their personal preferences, what they wanted to believe. That's what they followed. They followed their carnal whims and desires. So what is the lesson for us, my dear brothers and sisters? The lesson for us is that the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are clear. They are always there. Allah constantly is proving His existence and all of His teachings to us that we need for our guidance, for the akhirah, to get close to Him. They are clear, but they become foggy. They become unclear. They become clouded when we follow our personal desires. When we want to believe what our nafs, our low-level nafs is telling us to believe. When we start following our whims. This is exactly why those polytheists did not believe, as this verse tells us. They denied it and they followed their ahwa, which is plural of hawa. They followed their personal desires. And وَكُلُّ أَمْرٍ مُسْتَقِرٍ. Everything is recorded, good and bad. So my dear brothers and sisters, sometimes we come across certain things in the Quran, in traditions, that are a little bit difficult to fathom, right? Like the splitting of the moon, etc., parting of the seas, extraordinary acts that prophets have done, awliya have done, but should we just reject them, take a purely rationalist perspective, say this does not make sense, and let's look for metaphorical explanations, let's look for scientific explanations, let's look for rational explanations, purely based on intellect? Our intellect is limited. It cannot explain certain supernatural things. Our knowledge is limited. Our sources and abilities are limited. It does not mean they are fake. It does not mean we reject them. We have to remain open. We have to remain objective, impartial, and not say all of this is some type of, some type of extravagance or exaggeration or ghuluw or this type of really, really harmful projections onto our religion and how we must understand it. Even though some things are a little bit difficult to fathom, we should not reject them because of our personal inclinations and desires and whims. This is the lesson that we get from this whole incident to help us in our spiritual development. So as a summary and a conclusion, this incident, when we look at what the Quran and traditions tell us, it is quite clear that they tell us it was a miracle that the Holy Prophet did in order to prove his prophethood. There have been objections, there have been arguments against it, but as we saw, each one of these objections does have its counter argument and has a very plausible response. And also, we saw and we conclude that from this incident, we learn that even though certain events, certain things, certain reports might be difficult for us to fathom and understand, like miracles, it does not mean that they are necessarily false or fake. And they can happen. We are limited in our intellect, in our sources, in our abilities, and there are certain supernatural things that we can only gain by examining the true teachings of the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt instead of following our carnal desires and whims. Let's pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He hastens and protects our holy Imam. Oh Allah, enable us to correctly understand your words. Oh Allah, accept all of our acts of servitude in this holy month. Oh Allah, forgive us and our forefathers for our sins. Oh Allah, bring relief to all those facing difficulty around the world. And oh Allah, enable us to live and die according to the teachings of the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt. Alaykum as-salam. Wassalamu alaykum wa rahmatullah.
Sheikh Ahsan, and one word just to add to this. If you go on YouTube and you put National American Space Agency, NASA, there is a scientist called Karna. And Karna is the chief scientist who studied the lunar history and the lunar geology. And he found there is a split in the moon. And the video I have is actually in my pocket. Karna said there is no explanation whatsoever to have this line in the moon in this way, with different geology and different analysis of the stones composed in this slit, apart from historical events could have happened to the moon, that it is split and distinct. Karna has become Muslim.
Right.
And if you go on the YouTube now, this is Karna and this is his talk.
They can definitely share it.
I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Now
Yeah.
go on YouTube, there is physical proof that this has happened, and every one of you can check it down on YouTube.
Yeah.
The moon has split,
Right.
and
Thank you very much for sharing that, and we really benefited from that. Thank you. Asante. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Mu'min, can I please request the recitation of Sura Fateha for the following Marhumeen: Marhuma Ma Kanani, Marhuma Tahira Raza Hussain, and the Marhumeen of the Kanani, Bakir and Maulidina families. Please recite Surah Al-Barakatul Fatiha. I'd like to take this opportunity to express our gratitude on behalf of Wessex Jamaat to Sheikh Mohamedali Ismail for delivering these very insightful and informative lectures over the last 2 nights. Can I please request you join me in showing our appreciation for Sheikh Mohamedali Ismail with the recitation of 3 loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Please note that after the program, we will be holding our famous annual dessert auction this evening, commencing at 9:50 p.m. Please be mindful of this during Iftaar time so that we can commence promptly, inshallah. Thereafter, we will be holding the Gents Games Night and Table Tennis Tournament, commencing at 11 p.m. So, brothers, please do be sure to stay for what I'm sure will be a fun and uplifting program, inshallah. Marhumeen, Wessex Jamaat is excited to invite you all for an event for the community to come together and celebrate Eid. The event known as Eid Fest will be on Sunday, the 15th of May, inshallah, and will provide an opportunity to come together as a community, pray together, play together, and eat together as we celebrate Eid al-Fitr. There will be a variety of outdoor carnival games for all ages and bouncy castles as well as a delicious barbecue, inshallah. We are hoping to offer stalls for small business owners within Wessex Jamaat to offer their products to the community as well. The cost for attendees is £5 for those aged 16 and above, and free for those under the age of 16. The cost will be payable on entry. Please do register using the link that has been circulated via email. Inshallah, Salah time is within the next minute or so, so we'll begin with the Adhan and commence with Salah. Inshallah, Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم توكلت على الحي الذي لا يموت الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبته ولا ولدا ولم يكن له شريك في الملك ولم يكن له ولي من الذل وكبره تكبيرا الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين عليا وأولاده المعصومين حجج الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله. وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله وسلم.
محمدا رسول الله.
اللهم
صل على محمد محمدا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى علي ولي الله ومن علي حجة الله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. اللهم صل على محمد الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. الحمد لله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده وبسجده بما آدم زاده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده وبحمده وآله محمد. الله أكبر. وأتوب إليك. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده وبحمده وآله محمد. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد واغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. صلى الله على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. الله أكبر. سبحان ربنا العظيم وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربنا الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سبحان محمد وآل محمد. سبحان الله الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده يا لطيف ارحم وتقبل عني على محمد وآل محمد وعزه فرجهم. الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. لا إله إلا
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. يا علي يا عظيم يا غفور يا رحيم أنت الرب العظيم الذي ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير. وهذا شهر أعزمته وكرمته وعرفته وفضلته على الشهور، وهو شهر رمضان، وهو شهر الذي فرضت صيامه عليه، وهو شهر رمضان الذي أنزلت فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان، وجعلت فيه ليلة القدر وجعلتها خيرا من 1000 شهر. فيا ذا المن ولا يمن علينا بشقاق رقبة من النار في من تمن عليه ويدخل للجنة برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. على خير عمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. الله أكبر. الذي العظيم وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده وبحمده وآل محمد. الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده وبحمده وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بجلال وجهك الكريم أن ينقضي عني شهر رمضان ويجمع الفجر بالليلة هذه ولتصف لي سمعة أو ذنب تعذبني عليه. صلى الله على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده وبسنة محمد وآل محمد. الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده وبسنة محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده وبسنة محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سبحان محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده سبحان محمد وآل محمد اللهم أكبر الله ربي وأتوب إليه اللهم أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده سبحان محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر الله أكبر الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سبحان محمد وآل الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده وآل محمد الله أكبر الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده عدد من عبده ويحمد عبد على محمد ومحمد وعبده الله أكبر ولا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له أشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد اللهم صل على محمد اللهم صل على محمد
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم أغفر على أهل القبور السرور اللهم أغني كل فقير اللهم أشبع كل جائع اللهم اكسر كل عريان اللهم اقضي دين كل مدين اللهم فرج عن كل مألوف اللهم رد كل قريب اللهم فك كل أسير اللهم أصلح كل فاسد من أمور المسلمين اللهم اشف كل مريض اللهم سد فقرنا فغنى اللهم غير سوء حالنا بحسن حالك اللهم لأن الدين وأغننا من الفقر إنك على كل شيء قدير.
وعليك توكلت يا سيدي اغفر لي